Hi, boys and girls. You know, we've been talking a lot about plants, and so I want to read a story to you today called The Great Kapok Tree. You know, we've been talking mainly about plants that we find around here, and those are plants that are in our gardens and maybe even some house plants. But if you ever were to get down by the equator, you'd see a whole bunch of different plants. It's where our tropical jungles are, our rainforests. And the Great Kapok Tree is a tale from the Amazon rainforest. Make sure you have a reading response page out because I'm going to ask you to answer some questions at the end of this book. There's a character in this book, and the character will change. And I want you to be thinking about how this character changes and just why do you think the character changes. Remember, good readers are actively thinking about what they're reading. They're asking themselves questions. They're wondering about things. They're allowing themselves to get deep into the book. So The Great Kapok Tree. And I do love this book. The person who wrote this is named Lynn Cherry. There's her name. And she wrote a note. It says, "Dear readers, I wrote The Great Kapok Tree to let the world know what happens to the rainforest creatures and to the entire planet when rainforests are destroyed. I hope that after reading this book, you will help save the rainforests. The Great Kapok Tree is about the Amazon rainforest, a tropical rainforest. But we have a temperate rainforest in the Pacific Northwest of the United States that we must protect too. To save acres in the tropical rainforest, write," and they've got the Children's Rainforest address. It says, "Please care for Mother Earth. Together we can make a difference. Lynn Cherry." And when you open up this book, it has the coolest page. It has a map of the world. And it shows the brown land and the blue ocean. And then here's the equator. And then there's a key here. It says tropical rainforests of the world. And it has a dark green is today's rainforest, and the light green was the original rainforest. So if you can see that, the places where the green is lighter used to be rainforests, but now it's gone. It shows a bunch of animals, I won't read them all, that rely on the rainforests for their homes. That's all around the edge, many insects. It's kind of amazing how many animals and plants live in the rainforest. It's a very large number. As a matter of fact, some people believe that there are so many more animals and plants that we don't even know yet. We haven't even learned about. Now, I will show you this last little section. The rainforest is actually divided into layers, and different creatures and plants live in different places. So you have the forest floor, right? You might have some insects and some animals that live down here on the forest floor. And then you've got, it's weird because it's labeled a little different than I'm used to. You've got shrubs down here in the bottom, understory. So this is like your understory. It goes under the trees. Okay. The understory would have shrubs and other plants like herbs, and ground animals would live there, right? And then you have your canopy. And that's where the treetops are. And there's more to it than this, but just imagine this is where the trees come out. I always think about, you know, my cousin used to have this bed, and her bed was shaped like this, and it had this piece of fabric on top. and that was a canopy. So a canopy is like the top layer, right? So your canopy is where the treetops are. Then you have some trees that just come up and they're really tall. They just pop up out of the rainforest canopy, and these are called emergents. They emerge out of the rainforest canopy. So there's more to it than that, but that's sort of your basics. You have the canopy where the tops of the trees are. Underneath you have the understory and the forest floor. And then above that there are some trees that come out called emergents. So you have emergents, canopy, the understory, and then the forest floor. Now, something to think about. Some animals spend their entire lives in the canopy. They never touch the forest floor. Can you imagine? Anyway, there's a lot I could get into about rainforest. Unfortunately, we won't have as much time, but I hope that if you enjoy learning about this, that you actually take the time to maybe check out some books from the library, watch a documentary. Maybe you can learn something that you enjoy learning about. I personally think that rainforests are fascinating places, and I hope one day I get to visit a real, Amazon rainforest type place. Although it sounds a little scary with all those big cats and things. The great kapok tree. Now remember, you're going to be listening to find out how the character changes. Two men walked into the rainforests. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. So you got two men right here and here. And this is the great kapok tree. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. So he's been working to cut the tree down, and now he's asleep. Now, when he gets there, he's going to cut down the tree, right? So I want you to think how he changes through this book. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear, "Señor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home, where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down." A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. "Señor, my hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower collecting the pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another." A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. "Señor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert." A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. "Senor," squawked the toucan, "you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and see what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain." A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear. "Senor, a ruined rainforest means ruined lives, many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree." A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the dappled light and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear, "Senor, the kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner?" Four tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, "Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen. And senor, do you know what trees produce? Oxygen. If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us all life." Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, "Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future, and surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends on what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in a world without trees." A three-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the men first appeared. Only now did she reach the ground. Plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping man, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice, "Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes?" She's saying, if you destroy the beautiful rainforest, what will you look at to find beauty? Man, I like sloths. I think they're cute. A child from the Yanomamo tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured in his ear, "Senor, when you awake, please look upon us all with new eyes." The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depended upon the great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were! The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. That means that the plants are hanging on it. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of their flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound, for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree. Suddenly, he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. He hesitated, and then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. There's the axe. So, in the beginning of this story, this man is going to go chop down this tree because he's being told to by another man. My guess is that man is probably going to pay him money to do it, right? And then after his nap, he changes his mind. I want you to get out your reading response journal, turn to a new page, and I want you to write, why did this man change his mind? And then I want you to think, what would you do if you were the man? Write that too. If you were the man and your job was to chop down the tree, what would you do? Have a great day.